Great. So as I mentioned earlier, we are continuing with our currency converting app, and hopefully by the end of today's session we would have done the part where we can convert from any currency to the other. And that's like the main functionality of the app that we've been working with. And unfortunately, because of the break, it's been a while since we all came to it. I personally haven't touched the code in several days, so we'll just quickly refresh our memory about it. Then what I'm also going to try my best to do is, since we are going to be using an API, at least give you some idea about what APIs are and how you use them, so that at the end of the day, if you happen to be using any on your own, you should be able to equally work with them. So during our last session, we were considering which API to use. Eventually, the API that we decided to use had some limitations with regards to the number of requests that you can make in a month if you are using the free version. And when you are working with something like that, especially when the maximum number of requests you can do is limited, very small, it becomes very difficult for you to test it very well, because you know that you are easily going to exceed the maximum limit. And if you don't have money to pay for extra is a credit or whatever it is referred to, then you are stuck. I read under one YouTube channel the comment that somebody was complaining, it's totally a different API I'm referring to, but the person was complaining that when he started a project, you know how you are building a program, and anytime you can set a set that anytime that you save your work, it's actually refreshes, like something like when you're using a live server to preview your work, anytime you save your work, it refreshes. So this person didn't know, and he was doing that, and anytime he or she, I don't know, but let me say he, anytime he saved his work, he actually consumed a credit from his number of requests that he was allowed. And by the time he realized, like, you have the limit for the month, he had consumed that limit within a day. And now he couldn't continue the project again because he has to wait for the next month to be able to continue. So that is something we should be aware of. Initially, we're thinking of a way to circumvent that when we start building our application. And one way to circumvent that is, instead of making direct requests to the API anytime you need, what you can do is that you rather pull, when you make a request, you save that data in a file. Then your app should be taking its data from the file and not directly from the API. Okay. Uh, don't worry if you don't really appreciate it. I'll try and explain it as we go along. But then by saving your data in the a file, it's like, hey, you now have the database or access to that data locally, so you don't need to be making the request, and you can configure your program such that it makes the requests on just special occasions. Okay, maybe you are using days or a specific date or time of the day, something like that. You can use that. And I mentioned the last time that we can set up what we refer to as cron jobs to be doing that update for us. So you set up cron jobs that would pull the request or send a request to the API and update the data in your file to help you work with, so that you don't consume your limits. But then that is also some, it introduced some bit of technicalities like working with files. So if you're not comfortable enough working with files, that's going to be a bit challenging. And also, if you don't have the experience of working, setting up cron jobs, if you don't have the experience of setting up cron jobs, then that is also going to be a bit challenging. But then anytime you come across any of such challenges, you should see it as an opportunity to learn a new thing. That hey, you didn't know about cron jobs, but now they are telling you that there is something that you need to do and you need to set up cron jobs. Just take the opportunity to find out what they are. In fact, Google can tell you easily, and now you also have access to see what I'm typing, cron jobs. Now you have access to what is it called, chat GPT, that you can ask to help you if you have no idea at all. So here it says that a cron is a utility program that lets users input commands for scheduling tasks repeatedly at a specific time. So if that's what you are interested in, maybe your program should only update once every day at a specific time. You can set it as such so that at that specific time there will be a request sent to the API server and the data would be updated. So that is one of the ways. But then I realize that it's going to be a lot of work for us to easily implement. So first of all, just for us to focus on working with the API and not get sidetracked by the a lot of all those other things like setting up cron jobs, like working with files and the rest. Let's find an API that we can freely use, like a very free one that we are not limited to the number of requests. Fortunately, I found one, and that is from this platform, exchangeRate.host. So they have an API that is available for free. Let me be quick to add that most of the money related platforms, like the platforms that you use to do your transfers, like money transactions, okay, almost all of them are powered by APIs from bigger companies, sort of, because the API basically, in this our case, the API is like somebody has a database somewhere with the data that you need, and they are responsible for managing and updating that data. So your work is to just grab the data anytime you want it, and their work is to make sure the data is up to date, clean enough, put in the way that is presentable or in a way that you can easily use it. Okay, so majority of the time you are going to end up using other people's API. If there is an API available, you can afford it or it's free. Why will you waste your time to go start collecting data from scratch and manage them by yourself? But then there are some APIs that along the line you also have to build your own APIs depending on what you are trying to do. So API doesn't necessarily mean data, like source of data, but then it could be used for many other transactions depending on the type of API we are dealing with. Okay, so for today, the API that we are dealing with is this particular API. And when you work with APIs, one key thing that you need to appreciate is a term called, we call it endpoints. Endpoints. Today I didn't spring up my journal. Oh, let me try and bring it up so that I can write out for you to see, right? But any questions so far? These sessions are not supposed to be teaching sessions. Stop this. Yeah, they are supposed to be sessions where we all come and deliberate on things. But then it's fine. I just want to make sure that you are all getting the benefit of joining the session. Going forward, as we discussed yesterday, I'm not going to be the one leading the sessions. We are going to be assigning the tasks to members to be doing that. Okay, so let's see. We are talking about APIs, right? My tablet is not well positioned. Sorry, you're talking about APIs, and I'm mentioning that there is a term that you need to know. It's called endpoint. Endpoint is basically like the URL that you are going to use to get access to a particular data or functionality that the API provides. So one API like what we have here right now, the exchangeRate API that we are working with, can have multiple endpoints. Okay, exchangeRate. It can have multiple endpoints, and each endpoint may have its own functionality or something that it allows you to do. So for instance, in this particular API, we can have an endpoint that allows you to convert one currency to the other, one currency to another. We can also have another endpoint that is responsible for giving you the let's say the symbols, currency symbol for each country, currency symbol. So that means that that specific URL, if you use that specific URL, what is going to return to you is just the symbols of that particular currency. We may also have some. I'm not saying these ones are the ones that exist, but I'm suggesting possibilities, okay, and giving you a fair idea that what this means is that APIs can have multiple endpoints, and these are some of the things that you can really do with an endpoint. So as I said, one of the endpoints could be one that we use to convert one currency to another. The other could be currency symbol. The other could be rates. So we could have as many endpoints as possible, depending on whoever the creator of the API decided that they want you to be able to do with the API or not. So here, whenever you choose an API, you have to pay attention to the API's documentation, because that is what will give you a clue as to how to use this API, the various endpoints that are available, and how you can even use those endpoints to achieve what you are looking for. And they are usually samples. Mostly the documentations will give you sample code to use the endpoint in a specific programming language. So when you take this, these are endpoints that you can see. This particular first one, so you say bunch of API endpoints to rock your business. You have the latest rates. That means that if we hit this endpoint, okay, so I said the endpoint is basically like the URL that we are trying to access, and at the end of the day, it gives us a specific outcome. So if I put this into my browser, I expect that this thing that I'm getting back, this data I'm getting back, is actually the latest rates for the various countries. And that is what this endpoint is going to provide. If I want to convert currencies, then this is the endpoint that I'm going to use. And I need you to pay attention to it. Maybe I should visualize it here. It is not going to be the same for every API that you choose, but depending on the API. Hi, Philip. Philip, your background is a bit noisy. Okay. So depending on the specific API, you may have different endpoints, and even the endpoints may differ in terms of their structure of the URL. So kindly pay attention to that. Then I just want us to compare these two so that we see the difference. So this is the one that you are using to convert the currencies, right? And this other one is the one for getting the latest rates. Oh, where are you? Okay, the latest rates. So let's compare this. If you take this first one, you realize that we have api.exchangerate.host/ then here we have convert, okay, but here we have latest. The reason why I'm going into details with this for you to see is that you would also have to learn how to build your own APIs. So you should take cues from APIs that you have seen and how they were implemented. This is the actual domain name, or I mean the URL of the website itself. Okay, but then the extra part is what differentiates the endpoint. So here we have slash convert, here we have slash latest, and slash latest will bring us the latest rate. Slash convert will help us convert it. But after the convert, you can see that we have a question mark, then from is equal to this, and to is equal to that. Okay, this part of it, we call it the query string. The query string. So as you can see, there is a question mark there, and beyond the question mark, that is your query string. And when you start implementing your own APIs, they will make sense. But then what I need you to pay attention to is here that you have your from, then you are passing a unit to it, or a currency symbol to it, then to a currency symbol. So what it means is that with this particular endpoint, we expect that you are transferring, if you use this link, whatever value that you are using is going to be to convert from USD to euro. That's basically what it's going to be. Okay, let me put this in the browser. Let's see what does it return to us. Okay. Ooh. So it gives us just the rate, which is here, 0.93789. So that means that instead of using this and getting all of this data, you could rather use this and get just the specific rate for that currency conversion. I hope that makes sense. And that means if I want something else, say Ghana cedis to euro, I should be able to do this and it will bring the value here. So this is the rates. You can see this a bit different. Maybe I should use something else. Let's say naira. That will differentiate it. Yes. So you can see that the rate we are getting here is 43 point something. So at the end of the day, we are getting the specific rate for both countries. The next thing that we will now have to learn is this data that is coming in this form. How do we get the rate from it? That should be the next thing you learn. Okay, the data presented in this format, the format is known as a JSON format, or JSON data, and hopefully by now you probably would have heard about JSON. JSON is basically JavaScript object notation. Yes, and so that's notation, JavaScript object notation, and it has become like the commonest means to communicate or transfer data between different programming languages. So now, even though we are not aware which programming language this company used to build their API, the data it is returning is in the form of JSON, and irrespective of the programming language that we are using, we should be able to communicate with their API and use the data that it retains. So that's the advantage of using JSON. If you use a specific language to store the data, say Python dictionary, if you return to us, assuming they use Python dictionary to store the data and they return to us Python dictionaries, we will not be able to use Python dictionaries in JavaScript unless maybe there is an extension or something, that a workaround that we have to do to be able to use it, but it wouldn't be that easy. So JSON objects notation is like, no, did I say JSON object notation? I mean JavaScript object notation, which is commonly known as JSON, is currently the commonest way to share data between different programming languages. So consider it as such. And the most important thing is how to grab the data from each, I mean, from like the specific data you are looking for, how to grab it from the JSON data that is returned. But then let's keep going. So there are quite a number of endpoints here. If you are looking for historical rates, so I believe that this one should return like over the years, seeing that this is 2020 0404. So I guess that is going to start pulling data from 2020 April up to now and show you historically how it has been. So depending on the application that you are implementing, this means that you can bring a lot of functionalities into your app. You can have where people are able to compare the rate over time and see how, let's say, a specific currency has been doing, comparing it to another currency over a certain period of time. So that should be possible. And we have several other ones here. Okay, the next important thing to pay attention to is the various languages and their implementation in those languages. So here, this is an example of how you are going to implement in JavaScript. Currently, JavaScript is what is highlighted. So this is the implementation of the code in JavaScript. So depending on which programming language you are using, you just go straight to that specific language and use it. We are using Python, so click on Python, and this is what we need. As simple as that. So to get the latest rate as we have here in our Python program, this is what we are going to do. We say import requests, then we then go ahead and say URL is equal to this. That means that we are assigning this we are assigning the URL to this variable called URL. Okay, then how to get the response, that is the data that we are going to get. How do we get it? We get it by saying request dot get, then we pass the URL to it. So request is a model that is available in Python that allows us to, it allows us to, I mean, make requests to URLs. That's basically what it does, and get us data from that request or that URL that we went to. But then remember that the data is in the form of JSON. So your Python program should be able to identify that this data is in the form of JSON, and it should be presented in a way that it will appreciate it. For that matter, you go ahead and call .json method on whatever your response is. Then now you have access to the data, so you can go ahead and do anything you want to do with it. So the same will apply to any of these, and you can find time and play with it. Maybe I should copy this URL and put it in the chat. Oh, Buddy Gideon, are you still having network issues?
I can hear you, but it's just breaking and coming back.
Oh, sorry about
Maybe.
that.
Yeah.
The rest, is it the
Yeah.
same? Maybe from my network, I'm not sure. Tony,
I didn't get you, sir.
yeah, I'm just asking the
Okay.
rest whether it's the same issue with them.
Okay.
Yeah, talk the same issue, not that clear, not
Oh,
very clear.
I
We are
see.
managing.
Okay, so
Mm.
then give me a few seconds. Let me switch to a different network and see if it helps.
Okay, no problem.
Okay,
Mm.
sir.
Hi. Uh, I don't think there is any difference, is there? Because I can see that my network bars are pretty. I mean, they are even red.
Though it's okay, you can continue.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see. Now we know that this is the approach that we can take to get the data, this data that when we hit the URL we get. That's the approach we can take to get that data in our program, our Python program. Okay. So you don't need to do anything magical. For an instance, here you've been given the guide. You can easily copy this and use it in your program. Okay. So let's try that and see. This is our program, right? Let me run it once more to make sure that everything works fine. See, we have Python, and convert underscore or run. Okay, so it's from currency. Okay, which currency? Let's choose one. Then to what currency? Let's choose 4. Then how much do you want to convert? 1,000. Okay, good. So our program is working. We don't have a problem with it. But then what I just copied, let me bring that in somewhere. Maybe after the whole program has run, and bring it in here and say this. Ideally, you'd want to put your imports at the top, right? So I'll probably put it up here. The problem that we may likely have is if this model is not already installed on, this is an online platform, so sometimes there are models that you think should be available but they are not available. But I think the request model actually comes with Python, so once we have access to Python it should be in there. So now we'll go ahead and run this program. Hopefully if it is working, we expect it that at the end of the program it's going to dump this whole thing there, right? Because this thing that we did, we imported request, which is going to allow us reach the URL and get the data, so we don't need to go and open a browser. No, with the model called request we are able to write in our Python program, get access to the data from a specific URL. And I've told you we are working with JSON, so we make sure that we have the appropriate format. Then now we go ahead to print it. So the same way, let's go ahead and run this program and see. Here we have currency converter. So Python. Oh, are you writing at all? Oh my. Uh, is it frozen? I guess this thing is frozen. Okay, network. Oh god, reconnecting. My network is really bad today. Let me switch back to the original network because this one doesn't. Uh, okay, so let's run our program. Python convert underscore or that's py. still the same thing. So say 1, then to currency would be 4 as we did earlier, then the value is 1000. Yeah, so you realize that our calculation ended here where we had value, then this whole data is dumped on us. Is this thing frozen again? No, it's my PC that is frozen. Okay, so this whole data is coming from here. So if you pay attention to what is here, let me zoom in. See the starting, it starts with MOTD, then we have the message, this message, right? So that same data is what we have in our application now. If you go to the top, you realize that this MOTD is here. That's what we have at the beginning. So every part here is because of this data. We could probably, let me comment out the rest of our application. If I start from just that part, I'm going to end up getting errors. So yeah, let's comment out everything up to this end. So now I expect that as soon as I run it, just this part is going to work. Clear my screen, then run this again, and you see, so because now that's the only part of the code that is left in there, is giving us access to the data, right? Then as I said, we could go ahead and use any of the other endpoints, especially the one for conversion, but my goal is for you to be able to learn how to access these figures and incorporate it into the program that we have already built, so that the you are grabbing a list of the latest rates available, and you are trying to, based on the user's selection, you are trying to use the data that you have gotten and generate or calculate the output for the person. And when I said if you have an issue with the total number of requests you are allowed, the way to circumvent around it would have been this: that now that we have called this thing, it has brought this data, would have gone ahead to save this data in a file. Then the program that we are going to make, we will make sure it gets its data from that file and not always sending this request. Then we'll make sure that this particular request.get, will set up a cron job for this, so that it's all only run once, probably once in a day, once every 2 weeks, like depending on the frequency at which you are willing to update your data. Great. So yeah, that is how we would have approached it. But since this is free and we can hit their service anytime, we'll go ahead and work with it like that. I hope everything makes sense so far, like what we've done. It's just about getting the data. So now we need to see how we get access to this data. The other thing that I would like to do personally is in VS Code. I think you could just the last time, was it one of these sessions that someone showed me, in VS Code you could just format the JSON neatly, but then there are online formatters that you can also use. So you can say JSON formatter. I think I've been using this. You go there, dump your JSON data in it, and see how it's actually presented. So here, process this for me. Okay, so now we can see that it has been neatly processed, and see how it appears. So when we come into this data, I mean the JSON data that we have, there is this first part which is MOTD, and that is an object containing message and URL. And the URL is something that they are using for donation purposes, so that if you want to donate to their cause, then you donate. Managing such data isn't easy, and they allowing you to use it for free too comes at a cost, because you are hitting their service every time that you are making a request to grab the data. That's why a lot of the APIs out there are not free. Okay. Then when we come down here, we have success is equal to true base. The base URL is this, the dates that you are grabbing the data, then rate. So now our interest is actually in the rates. Okay, so how will we in our Python program get access to this particular one, rates? So that is when we need to learn how to use the JSON data or objects in Python. I'm pretty sure I don't even remember exactly how, but then the first thing that comes into my mind is using the dot notation, and I hope it is the right thing. Now some bit of JavaScript is messing up with my Python knowledge. So yeah, what we can try now is use the dot notation to get it and see if it works. And all that we need to do, we know that this data variable contains everything that we have here. Okay, that's the whole object, but then this object has different objects within it, and one of them is the MOTD, another is success, another, even though some of them are not objects on their own. So now you can see it from this angle that they are at the same level. So when I enter that data, there are multiple aspects of it, and one of them that we are interested in is the rates. Okay, so let's go ahead and try dot rate and see dot rate, then clear the screen and run the program again. Hopefully it doesn't crash on me. So it doesn't work in Python. Dict object has no attribute. Once it's been captured as a dict, I think then we will need, so the error is telling me attribute error, and it's telling me dict object. So it means that in Python, this .json method is converting this to a dictionary object. So I'll have to use it in the way that we use dictionaries. So I'll try with this notation. The Yes, so key value pair notation, or the square bracket notation, however it is called. Then let's try this and see. Hopefully this should work. Okay, yep, so now we are getting just the rates. Pay attention that the success part and the message URL, all those ones have been scraped off. This is all that we have. It's just the rate part. So that means that if I went ahead and I changed this to just success, let's see what we are going to get. I expect it to be true. So at the end of the day, when we run that, it says true. So that's all that we need to learn with regards to using the data. So now we have the data in this format. Which part of this data are you looking for? So if you are looking for, say, success, which I used, you put it in the square bracket with your quotation marks and put success in there. That is your key, and this is the value. So if I choose rate, if I choose rate, this is the key. The rate is the key, but then the value is all of this, and that's why it printed out all of those for me. But then I'm also interested in getting the specific rate depending on what I am doing. So let's say if I'm interested in the rate for Ghana, then one, I have to hit first this particular key, which is the rate. Then I have to try and get access to the next key, which will be for Ghana, which is this one. So let's see, remember the base URL is euro, so this means that you are looking at the rate the rate, if I pick that of Ghana cedis, it is now like a comparison between the euro and Ghana cedis. Okay, the 1 euro is equal to how much Ghana cedis? That's what we are looking at. That is 6.9. 6.9. Okay, so let's see, where are we? This. So now, instead of this, let's go back to rates. Then let me try this one too. So all that I'm trying right now is, I know that this will bring me all the values for the rates, the values that are present in the rate. But then I want specifically the value for the Ghana CD key. So let's go ahead and run this and see if it gives us an outcome that we are looking for. And we get an outcome. Wow, it's 11.03. So why were you getting? Oh, I didn't pay attention. Oh, Ghana cities. Hey, so how I mean, has the data just been updated or what? Because initially I was getting, it's here to be, I mean, it's captured here as 6, but then we are getting 11 anyway. So what's important is that now we know how to access each of them. So if I want the rate, since my base currency, I know my base currency and I want the rate for one another currency, I'll just go ahead and access it this way. This means that I can go on to do NGN for the naira, and that should also give me the value in naira. Right, great. Any questions about what we've done so far? Any question?
No, no
Okay.
question, dog.
Okay, fine. All right. So let's see. Now that we know how to access each of them, all we need is, previously our program had hard coded currency rate in them. So this time round, we don't want to hard code any of these things in there. But then we are dynamically going to get the rate from this simple code here. Okay, so at the end of the day, we may want to go and put this at the very top of our program so that we get access to the data. Top up here, now we get access to this data and we can use it anywhere at all that we want the currency. And this is how we assess the rate for a currency. We say data rate, then the what, how is it called, oh, how will you call this? Currency symbol, sorry. uh, Currency symbol. So what we were doing initially, where we had this particular dictionary that was defining everything, we would probably ignore that for now. um, Sorry, someone is calling me. Let me just. Great, so let's see. What's the easiest way out? Anyway, I like doing hard things. I've actually done this before, so I could show you and walk you through it. But then let's try doing it the hard way. I hope you're okay with us doing it the hard way. Uh, okay, so now um Okay, so depending on how we implemented it, this was the currency from this time around. We may not even need like to list these things for them to tell us which currency. All we need them to do is to give us the currency symbol, right? I hope you can still see my screen. To give us the currency symbol, that is what we would need to do. Instead of asking them to give us something, we just need a currency symbol. Then we are going to put it in there to generate the, how is it called, the rates. Okay, so at the end of the day, this one was the function that helped us to convert. We had the amount to convert, the rates, amount to convert, and rates. Oh, okay. So I think because of this, then maybe this is not the most up-to-date thing that we did. Was it? Or was it this one? I thought we updated the code. Converts. Let's see. Yeah, so it means that this is, oh, was it not this one? I want to convert, then getting the exact rate. Yes, so it means that this was the final thing that we did the last time. Okay, so I'll have to work with this. And basically, let me just walk you through the code. So this was printing something to the screen, telling them that maybe the name of the program, so a currency converter. Then this gave you the options to choose which currencies we want to convert to. So now let's create a new one. Call it convert convert updated, something like that. That's py. Then we'll copy what is in convert. Let's copy this and paste it in here. Then we are going to scrap off some of the things, but before I do that, let me just walk you through what this is. So we have this printing out the name, then this giving the options for one to choose which currency they want, and this was the dictionary that was holding the rate for us. So if you are trying to compare what we already have with what we are currently going to do, this is the part that is representing the JSON data that we are receiving right now. So I ideally we should be getting this whole data dynamically instead of hard coding it for ourselves. So this time around, we are going to end up getting rid of this. Then this is where we ask the person to tell us which currency they are converting from, but then they should choose a number here. So going forward, we are going to change this prompt to make them give us the currency symbol. So if it is Naira, just type NGN. If it is Ghana cedis, type GHS, something like that. Then we go ahead to calculate the rate. Remember that the rates that we are calculating is gotten from here, this dictionary. We pick the value from this dictionary. So instead of using this dictionary, we are rather going to use the, what did we do here? This particular line of code down here, something like this. I mean this part, data that to get us the value. So yeah, let's try this by starting to delete some of the parts. Delete this as well. Then here we no longer want you to be an integer. We want so from, we just say from, then we say to. So just enter the symbols. Then our rates, okay, so we need to go here and go and copy the code for the API, which is this part, and come and paste it in here. RPL. Okay, so this is say this is requests to external API, just so we know what is happening there. Okay, and that ends here. Right, good. Usually I like to, okay, so we know that this is the part that we are making a request to the API, and that's what we've introduced. And we are definitely going to print the name of our program so that everyone knows the program. Then here we are asking them from which currency are you converting and to which currency are you converting. Okay, this is going to give us a string which will be in the form of, say, GHS or NGN. Okay, so at the end of the day, we have come to realize that to get a rate for this particular currency, all we need to do is, because we called this data, the data we collected in the form of Python object as we have it now, it's called data, and to access it we use this format. So data, then we pass rate to it, then we pass the specific currency symbol we are looking for. So something like this. If I do this, I'm going to end up with a rate for Nigeria, right? So the easiest way right now is this part is being represented by any of these variables here, because they are what the person is going to type. So at the end of the day, instead of something like this, we are rather going to have this in here, and instead of hard coding ngn in there, we are going to hard code. This is for the two. Please remember that. Let me copy this before I go back. Anyway, so the reason why that is for two is because initially our formula, it was two. So that is how come I went to make it the two. So currency two. Then this part will be the data, pass rate to rate. Then we have currency from, right? And this should now work for anything at all, any currency at all. We should be able to convert it. Isn't it interesting? Hopefully. Let's see what comes out of it. But then let's try running this program. Clear the screen and run the program. Python converts underscore updated. Then run this currency converter from, so I want to convert from Ghana cedis to naira. Then how much do you want to convert? Say 1,000 cedis, and boom, it has converted for me. So as simple as that, like that is all that we needed. We've been able to convert, and now we can use it to convert any currency that we want. So let's say I want to convert USD to Ghana cedi. So all I need to say is from USD to Ghana cedis, and how much do I want to convert? $800. That should be 8,279 Ghana cedis as at today. So yeah, that is how we go about it. There's one particular challenge that I may find with what we have right now, and that is, what if the person enters a wrong thing, something that doesn't exist? We are not catering for that. So let's say this HHH, then RRR. We don't have anything like that. So let's see, say traceback error, this key error. So there is no key like that. So we would have to check whether the key exists or not before we use it in our calculation. Okay, so at the end of the day, what I would probably do is this. I will probably set the rate, say rate 2, and say this is equal to this whole thing, so that I can check if the rate 2 exists before I do the calculation. Okay, rate 2 if it exists, and rates from will also be equal to this, right? Rate from will also be equal to this. Hey, why am I using that? Will be equal to that. Then now we can have rate 2 over rate from, and that should do the work. But then we still haven't checked anything. So the first thing I want to do is, if I want to really know if rate 2 exists and sorry, and rate from also exists before I go and do this calculation. Before I go and do so, let me copy plus the comment. I go and do this calculation if they exist. Else, if they don't exist, what do I want? I want to probably this is not a function, so I may need to close it, okay, or restart the program. But then in that case, I'll have to import the OS model to be able to do that. So for now, I'll just print out something to the screen. I'll say print, then what will I print? I'll print sorry, the what is it, the currency.
How
So we say no currency.
check the database.
Change them now.
uh Samuel, your background is, we can hear you talking. Hi Samuel. Okay, so you say sorry, then something like one of the currencies provided doesn't exist. Okay, check it out. So yeah, and maybe would have to exit the program at all, but now I'm not going to be doing that. So let's try running this program and see if it offers us any help over what we had initially. Oh, Charlie, it's not my fault. Oh, the JavaScript I've been writing recently has taken away my Python away. Oh my god. How? Oh, goodness. How on earth am I using curly braces? Does this work? Okay. Finally. So if I type something else, then I type another thing, we are still getting that error. So this, that. Line 15. So it picks it right from here. That means so we have to do our checks. We have to do our checks. So here, what you can do is rather use try and catch. Try and catch. So we try this and catch if it is a key error. So try, right? Hey, why are you giving? Oh, oh God, please, pardon me. Try and catch is in JavaScript, so it's try and accept in Python. Oh God, just some few days of writing JavaScript code, just messing up my head right now. Okay, so yeah, except then the specific key, the specific type of error we are looking for is key error. So if there is key error, Then we want to print this. So we wouldn't even need this if statement. Let's print this, then get rid of this if statement. I hope this works. Okay, so clear the screen first. All right, so now it is not giving us any problem. Any questions concerning what we've done so far? Yes, any questions so far? So at the end of the day, now we can go ahead and say ngn, then USD. Oh, I wanted to try something outside it, so GGG or something, then hit enter. Sorry, one of the currencies provided doesn't exist. Okay, so we should, I mean, okay, let me put, maybe the best thing to do is to make sure we put every other part that is left inside the try and accept block. I think that will make a lot more sense, so that if we don't get the right thing, then we should rather exit out of it, right? Should be indented. Okay, good. Clear out the space. Okay, so at the end of the day, if everything is all right, you should go ahead and do it. Otherwise, print this information for us. So let's clear this screen, then run the thing again from GGG to something else that we don't know. Then sorry, one of the currencies provided doesn't exist. Check it out. Okay, so yeah, that is good. I mean, we could get rid of these things. We could check them. Oh, there is another error here. Name error. It's not defined, so it can't find this particular name. Where did they come from? Oh, it's not defined. That's print, the printf. Oh, okay, I get it. So this is supposed to be outside for the function to be able to work. Otherwise, we have to put a function also in there. So let's try with good currencies. I mean, the right currencies symbol. GHS to USD and say 1,000 cities. Then yeah, we get it working. So that is one of the checks and balances you may is it checks and balances? I mean checks that you may need to be doing. Another check that you probably want to do is you don't want your users to be struggling always to type these currencies in capital letters. So if somebody runs this program and instead of capital letters, go ahead and use small letters for the currency unit, is it going to work? For now, it's definitely not going to work because you've not considered that case. And when you look at the JSON data we are working with, these keys are in capital letters. So if somebody enters it in small letters, it surely isn't going to work. So you see, sorry, one of the currencies provided doesn't exist. Check it out. So we would have to close our program because it's not going to work. Then to cater for that, what we can do is to make sure that everything that the user is providing us with, that's the string that they are typing, we are going to convert it to the capital case, so that irrespective of what they type, we are just making sure that it is capitalized, so that at the end of the day, when we go in there, we get either a correct match, or we know that it doesn't exist, what they are looking for doesn't exist. So here, to do that, we can append the method, is it to upper, is that the method? But then if you don't remember, like I don't remember right now, you can just go convert to upper case, then add Python to it. We sure will find the method right now. Yeah, so it's just upper. Oh god. Dot upper. I think in JavaScript it's likely to be to upper. So upper, then this one too will be upper, and all it's saying is that whatever I type, convert it to uppercase. So then now I can use my program with just typing ghs, then typing USD, and it should work. How much do you want to convert? You realize it didn't give us the error message. So if I choose 1000, why is this thing not responding? I think my network is fluctuating again, and it does a conversion for me. So basically that is how we approach it. We have been able to take whatever the user provide, and now we are converting it. So any currency at all, provided is in the list that is provided here, we should be able to resolve it and get the values for the conversion. Yes, so any questions? Otherwise, I think our basic currency converting app is working just fine. Any questions about it? Yes, does anyone have any question? Does anyone have any question? So let me give you some small assignments. Once again, the code is still available. You can always get access to it. This one, what we did was to go and grab the data using this particular one, but then the easiest way would have been for us to just take the person's currencies. Then instead of making a blank request to grab all the data, would rather make a request to grab just these two currencies. Oh, I mean, hey, so now we have to get rid of this thing. There's two currencies that a person chooses to work with, and that means you'd rather have to go for this particular endpoint. So what I want you to do is go to this platform. I think I already shared the link in the chat. So go to this platform, then choose convert currency endpoints. Then when you choose the convert currency endpoints, the things that you need to understand, if you don't understand any of them, they are provided here, like information on them here. And look for Python, and basically this is how it is. But what you need to pay attention here is that instead of just putting it directly in there, you want to make this how is it called, dynamic. And that also means that you would have to first ask your user which currencies they want to convert from and which currency they want to convert to. Then you dynamically insert that variable into this your URL. Once you are able to do that in your URL, then you can go ahead and get the data, and the data that will be returned is the specific rate, I mean the JSON format in this way. But then you should also be able to grab this particular rate. This time around it's in info rate, yeah, info rate. So go and play around it and see how you are able to grab this data, get the specific URL when you make a request to this. Anytime you are struggling with any of these things, one of the easiest ways that you can sort yourself out right now is to ask ChatGPT. In fact, I made ChatGPT write an app with this API, and it works perfectly. I mean, there were a few challenges when it did it, because as ChatGPT would tell you, it doesn't have access to the internet to check for things for you. But then if you provide it with the right prompt, it's able to get you that. Let me see if let me see, will I find it now? I'm coming. Let me check on GitHub. I published it on GitHub. So I made ChatGPT write a currency converter app using that. The ChatGPT rather use this particular endpoint to do it. So if you are struggling, I'm sure it will be able to help you do that. But then learn to practice with grabbing the data yourself and manipulating the data. That's the most important part. Currency converting. How will I even find that right now? Okay, currency converter. Yep. Did I put in the URL? Yeah, so as you can see, this is the site where we are getting the API from, and this is the first one that it did. Here I gave it the prompt with regards to the CSS to use, and then after it has done everything, I asked it to redo it, and this is the outcome. But then one important thing is some bits weren't working initially and I had to fix them. Then unfortunately I didn't leave. I've hosted them, but I didn't put the URLs here. Let me see. Let me grab the URL. Should be somewhere close. Oh, still can't find it. Okay, so let me open. I think I usually save them in my Telegram accounts. But if you have any questions concerning what we've done so far, I'll be available to answer that. So Telegram, let's find this. Okay. Okay, good. So now I found the links. Great. This is one of them. Then this is the other one. So the same concept that we have worked with, but then this you have provided an interface. Besides, this is web, so basically HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and not Python. but then it's the same concept that we've been working with. So if I go ahead and I choose 1,000 and say, hey, I want from Ghana cities to say USD, Ghana cities to say USD, then click on this convert. So the converted amount is 96.63. In the same way, when I come here and I say I want 1,000 cities from Ghana cities to USD, and I say convert, then it gives you the value here. So basically, there are a lot of ways that you can approach this, and as I've said, there are different endpoints here that you can also try incorporating historical data, time series data, fluctuating data, and all of these other things. So yeah, try your hands on them, practice as much as you can, and that is the only way that we are going to get better. I'm looking forward to a possibility of us building the user interface for the Python application. But then I'm also considering whether we should rather do something, a different project with a code instead of, because the model that we are going to use to build the user interface may not be something that you are so interested in. It depends on what your end goal is and what you want to be able to build. So now I'm having second thought about it, and maybe instead of going to focus on learning that model and trying to use it to build, we should rather take another project using our basic Python knowledge to start from scratch, just as we did, so that will help us revise and build multiple projects instead of focusing on this. But then let me hear what you guys also think, then we can take a decision on that, so that eventually we'll know how to what next to be working on. So what do you think?
Good. Good evening, doctor.
Good evening. All right.
So I just jumped down. I'm sorry for coming late, but
Yeah.
I just want to ask that. Okay, the user interface that you showed now, you used
Mm.
HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you were asking that if you want to use Python,
Yeah.
the Python code that you wrote, is it like it's not possible for us to use HTML, CSS with the Python?
To use it directly, no. Like I don't, unless you use
Okay,
a model that will permit that. So for now, the a framework like a Python framework to do that. But then that means that you're going to learn something extra,
like
that like
like
class.
Kate Tinker,
Can,
something.
yes. So T Kinta, you not have. It's not web based. That is. Well, how will I call that? The though it's graphical user interface, but that isn't web based. Okay, so if we are looking at,
Okay.
initially that was what I was thinking, like we use the TK Inter or TK Inter, however you call it.
Yes.
But then what I'm also saying right now is that that also has its own learning curve. Like it's something extra that you need to learn. It's a new model that you need to
Yes.
learn to be able to use. So should we go that
Yeah.
route, or should we just focus on practicing with the basic Python that we know, so that at the end of the day we implement that project in Python instead of going to now learn that additional one which we may not end up using? That's the concern I have right now.
Yeah, I understand you. What I would just suggest is that
Mm.
since is the only difference between what you have written in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is the syntax of what you have written in. Like the process is still the same with what you have written in Python, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can just leave it like that using HTML, CSS, and build another thing in
No,
Python
no,
with
no. So no, the
those.
HTML and CSS is not the interface for our Python. No, I was just showing the
I
rest that.
understand. I understand. Yeah.
Okay, okay. So that was like a
Yeah.
side one that we did. So I also agree with you. Just as I'm saying, I think we should take another project with Python. At least everyone appreciates that
Exactly.
if you are doing Python and it is not like the web development or the standalone software development modules that you are using, we all appreciate that your code is going to be in the form of like something that would have to run in a terminal, so every developer will understand, and we don't necessarily expect you to have hosted the code somewhere in the web that we can see, if that's the basic things we are doing. So we can equally, and at least our end goal is we appreciate how to use these things practically. And even when we begin to learn frameworks like Django, Flask, and the rest, eventually, what is going to back your framework, like the functionality, is this basic code that you've written. So this one that we have done here, that we've used HTML, CSS, blah blah, we could equally go and do that with Django. But then in Django, we are not going to write the JavaScript to be doing that work, because our back end will be done with Python. So that is where we are going to be writing this Python logic to handle the conversion for us. So yeah, I personally I agree with that point where we take a new project and work on it. But the others, let's hear from you as well. Hi, hi, hi. Speak guys, are you around? Are you around? Okay. So whatever be the case, I'm taking silence to be yes, we agree. So what I'm going to do in the course of the week is I'm going to get a Google form link shared in the community, and for you to suggest projects that you want us to do. In fact, these projects are like we are using them to learn. So come up with something that you think, hey, let's try this thing. Then we'll take it from the very basis, and just as we did with this one, try to build it to the end, okay, or get it as functional as possible. So I am going to do that. And today, earlier in the day, I was reading something. Uh, I don't know how many of you know. What's his name? Is it Lancey Cranston? The I think he's the founder for FreeCodeCamp. I didn't bookmark that. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let me check my email. I'm pretty sure it's in my email. My email. So he has written a book about how to become a developer, where he shared his experience, how he went into tech from being an English teacher and all that. And I started reading it's a book, but then he published it on FreeCodeCamp, so it's easier. Quincy Lansing. It's easy for you to get it. And I was reading it. It was quite interesting knowing how he struggled to get in. So if you have any free time, just find time to read. I mean, it's quite a long one, so we don't expect you to read it at one sitting. I did my best to read a lot of it, but then I still could just cover a few parts. So yeah, let me share the link in the chat. If you have any time at all, go ahead and read it. One thing too that I usually do with some of these things, even though I didn't do it this time around, but if I want to read this thing badly, but then I'm not going to get the time to read it, what I'm going to do is copy the content. Then I'll give the content to text to speech application. I mean, there are some online as well that you can use to convert from text to audio. Then now I save the audio and I listen to the audio, because with the audio you don't need me to be focused to read and stop every other thing I'm doing. I could be doing my own stuff and be listening to it as well. So yeah, kindly try and read it. I think there are a lot of insights in there that will help everyone. On that note, if there are any concerns, questions, concerns, contribution, any addition before we end the session? Yes.
Five one.
Okay, so I presume there are no concerns and therefore we can end today's session. Thank you all for joining, and hopefully we'll meet, God willing, next, that will be what,